The 80s may have belonged to masked slashers and body count mayhem, but then the 90s shifted horror into something colder and more grounded. This was the decade of the serious crime thriller. Instead of unstoppable killers in the woods, we got calculated predators hiding in plain sight, detectives chasing patterns, and ordinary lives unraveling under psychological pressure. Fear felt less supernatural and a lot more possible. These films traded jump scares for tension, atmosphere, and dread that lingered long after the credits rolled. Tonight we're stepping into the darker side of the 90s, where horror wore a suit, carried a badge, or knocked on your front door. 7. 1995. A veteran detective close to retirement and a driven new partner are assigned a string of murders tied to the 7 deadly sins. Each crime scene is staged as a grim moral lesson, with the victim chosen to match the theme. As the case unfolds, it becomes clear the killer is building toward a final act designed to pull the investigators themselves into the message. The pairing at the center gives the story its backbone. Morgan Freeman plays the seasoned investigator as thoughtful and worn down, while Brad Pitt brings urgency and emotion to the younger detective. Their clashing worldviews shape how they read the clues and respond to the growing horror. Gwyneth Paltrow appears as the partner's wife, providing the film's few moments of warmth. Director David Fincher leans hard into mood and control. The city feels soaked, dark, and decaying, with carefully designed crime scenes that are disturbing without needing constant on-screen gore. Lighting and color grading keep the palette muted and heavy, and Howard Shore's score adds a steady sense of dread. The violence is often implied, letting suggestion do the work. The result is a tightly constructed crime thriller with lasting impact. Strong performances and relentless atmosphere carry it to a finale that is blunt, shocking, and widely remembered. Breakdown, 1997. A road trip turns into a nightmare when a couple's car stalls on a remote desert highway. A passing truck driver offers to take the wife to a diner to call for help, while the husband stays behind. When he finally gets moving and reaches town, she is gone, and the driver claims they never met. The search uncovers a coordinated kidnapping scheme that targets stranded travelers far from help. Instead of overcomplicating the setup, the film keeps things direct and tense. Kurt Russell carries the story as an ordinary man forced into extreme action, selling the panic and determination without ever feeling larger than life. Kathleen Quinlan grounds the emotional stakes, while J.T. Walsh makes the helpful stranger role quietly chilling. The wide desert backdrop adds isolation and pressure, with long stretches of empty road and nowhere to turn. Director Jonathan Mostow emphasizes practical action, using real vehicles, stunt driving, and physical fights rather than heavy digital effects. When violence hits, it is fast and hard. This is a tightly built thriller that wastes no time and keeps escalating. Clean premise, strong performances, and sharp pacing make it an easy standout for late 90s suspense. Single White Female, 1992. After a painful breakup, a New York software designer advertises for a roommate to help cover the rent. The new tenant seems ideal at first, friendly, supportive, and easy to live with. Gradually, the admiration turns into fixation. She starts copying habits, appearance, and personal details, then begins interfering with relationships that get in the way. The tension builds through small boundary crossings before the danger becomes obvious. Familiar routines feel less safe, and the shared apartment shifts from comfort to confinement. Much of the unease comes from how close and personal the threat is. Director Barbet Schroeder frames the story as an intimacy thriller, focused more on behavior than spectacle. Bridget Fonda plays the lead with grounded vulnerability, while Jennifer Jason Leigh drives the film with a bold, unsettling performance that moves from needy to controlling in careful steps. The supporting characters mainly serve to show how far the obsession spreads. Violence is used sparingly but memorably, with practical effects and sharp staging when key moments hit. The film relies more on psychological pressure and identity invasion than constant action, letting the character dynamic carry the suspense. A standout early 90s psychological thriller built on trust gone wrong. Performance-driven, tightly contained, and still effective at getting under the skin. Copycat, 1995. After surviving an attack by a serial murderer, a criminal psychologist develops severe agoraphobia and seals herself inside her apartment. When a new killer starts staging murders that mirror infamous historical cases, police turn to her for insight. From behind locked doors and computer screens, she helps map the pattern, then realizes the killer is watching her work and wants to make her part of the finale. The investigation unfolds as a collaboration at a distance. She guides the case remotely while detectives handle the street work, creating a steady back and forth between field danger and indoor dread. Sigourney Weaver sells both the intelligence and the fear of the role, while Holly Hunter brings grounded authority as the lead detective. Their partnership drives the film more than the gimmick. Director John Amiel keeps the focus on behavior and motive rather than spectacle. Crime scenes are shown with restraint, usually emphasizing discovery and consequence over graphic detail. The murderer's methods reference well-known real cases without directly recreating them. Mid-90s tech like early online research and video links plays into the tension and isolation. It's a character-driven procedural with a psychological edge. Strong performances and a respectful tone help it stand out among 90s thrillers, with suspense built from profiling and pursuit rather than shock value. The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. A young FBI trainee is assigned to consult an imprisoned killer in hopes of catching another one still at large. The resulting conversations are as dangerous as the investigation itself, with manipulation flowing both ways. Each exchange peels back layers of power, vulnerability, and control. Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling is defined by quiet resolve rather than bravado. Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter dominates scenes through stillness and precision, turning minimal screen time into something unforgettable. Ted Levine's Buffalo Bill is portrayed with unsettling seriousness, avoiding caricature entirely. The film's visual language is intimate and confrontational. Characters stare directly into the camera, collapsing distance between viewer and subject. Silence is used as a weapon, letting tension simmer rather than explode. Howard Shore's score stays restrained, trusting performance to do the heavy lifting. The Silence of the Lambs transcends its genre labels. It's psychological horror operating at the highest level, driven by character rather than spectacle. Intelligent, disturbing, and meticulously crafted, it remains a benchmark for thrillers and horror alike. Shallow Grave, 1994. Three flatmates in Edinburgh rent out their spare room and soon find the new tenant dead behind a locked door, with a suitcase full of cash nearby. Instead of calling authorities, they make a reckless choice. Keep the money and make the problem disappear. From that moment on, trust starts to rot, and every decision pulls them deeper into danger. The film tracks how fast ordinary people unravel once greed takes over. Alliances shift, nerves fray, and simple conversations turn hostile. Much of the tension comes from watching the friendship collapse under pressure rather than from constant outside action. This was Danny Boyle's feature debut, and the style is already sharp and playful. Bold camera angles, overhead shots, and sudden visual flourishes keep the energy high, even in confined spaces. The shared apartment grows more claustrophobic as suspicion builds. When violence happens, it is handled mostly through implication and aftermath instead of graphic display. Carrie Fox, Christopher Eccleston, and Ewan McGregor carry the film as the central trio, selling the early camaraderie and the later paranoia. Their shifting power dynamic is the engine that drives the story to its dark finish. A tight, darkly funny thriller about bad choices and worse cover-ups. Lean, stylish, and character-driven, it remains one of the standout British thrillers of the decade. The Game, 1997. A wealthy, emotionally distant banker receives a strange birthday present from his brother. Access to a company that creates personalized experiences. It starts with odd disruptions and clever pranks, then escalates into real danger. Soon he cannot tell what is staged and what is not. His finances, reputation, and safety all seem to collapse at once. The story is built around uncertainty. Clues point in different directions. Allies may be performers, and every new event changes the rules again. The tension comes from watching control slip away piece by piece. Michael Douglas leads the film and sells the shift from confidence to panic with steady precision. Sean Penn plays the brother who sets things in motion, keeping his motives unclear. Deborah Kara Unger appears as a key figure inside the mystery, and her role keeps the viewer guessing. Director David Fincher uses the San Francisco setting to heighten the unease, moving from polished spaces to increasingly hostile environments. Many of the big moments rely on practical stunt work and in-camera effects, including vehicle and fall sequences staged for real impact. The visual style stays controlled and moody, supported by a tense Howard Shore score. It is a paranoia-driven thriller that commits fully to the premise. Some debate the ending, but the ride is tightly constructed and consistently absorbing. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, 1992. After a woman reports misconduct by her gynecologist, his life collapses, leading to his death and the loss of his wife's pregnancy. Months later, the widow re-enters that woman's world under a new identity, taking a job as the family's nanny. Once inside the home, she begins a quiet campaign to take control, undermining the mother, influencing the children, and working to replace her entirely. The threat grows through small, calculated moves rather than immediate violence. Daily routines turn uneasy as trust is exploited from within. Much of the suspense comes from how long the deception can last and who will see through it first. Rebecca De Mornay drives the film with a controlled, unsettling performance that balances calm caregiving with hidden hostility. Annabella Sciorra plays the mother under pressure, slowly realizing something is wrong. Matt McCoy appears as the distracted husband, while Ernie Hudson plays a handyman who becomes an early obstacle to the plan. Director Curtis Hanson frames the suburban setting as vulnerable rather than safe, using familiar spaces to build tension. The escalation leads to several sharp set pieces, including a well-known greenhouse confrontation staged with practical effects and stunt work. A tightly wound early 90s thriller built on invasion of trust. Performance-led, suspenseful, and designed to hit common fears about safety at home. The Bone Collector, 1999. A brilliant forensic investigator is left paralyzed after a line-of-duty accident and confined to his bed. When a serial killer starts staging clue-filled murder scenes across New York City, police turn to him for help. He directs the investigation remotely, guiding a patrol officer through each location as his eyes and hands. Every scene is a puzzle piece, and the pattern points toward a final setup that hits close to home. The case unfolds like a race against time, with evidence hidden inside each grim display. Much of the tension comes from distance. He can see the answers, but cannot reach the danger. That split perspective gives the investigation a different rhythm than a standard detective story. Director Philip Noyce keeps the focus on procedure and pressure rather than spectacle. Denzel Washington carries the role through voice and expression, projecting urgency without physical movement. Angelina Jolie plays the field officer who grows into the job, and their mentor-partner dynamic drives the film. Supporting turns from Queen Latifah, Ed O'Neill, and Michael Rooker round out the task force. Crime scenes are staged with practical effects and detailed set design, built around traps and historical references tied to the city. The clues, tools, and remote communication tech shape how each discovery unfolds. A polished late 90s procedural thriller powered by its leads. Familiar structure, but handled with enough craft and momentum to stay engaging. Cape Fear, 1991. After serving 14 years in prison, a violent offender walks free and begins targeting the lawyer who once defended him. He believes key evidence was withheld that could have reduced his sentence. Instead of striking directly, he stalks the attorney's family and uses intimidation that skirts the edges of the law, turning daily life into a steady psychological siege. The film plays as a slow, tightening spiral. Each encounter raises the pressure, and legal options fail one by one. Robert De Niro's Max Cady is calm, calculating, and theatrical, while Nick Nolte plays the attorney as increasingly cornered and morally compromised. Jessica Lange and Juliette Lewis round out the family at the center of the threat, making the danger feel personal and immediate. Director Martin Scorsese pushes the style far beyond a standard thriller. Bold camera angles, heightened color, and dreamlike inserts give the movie a charged, uneasy mood. The score draws from Bernard Herrmann's original themes, newly arranged by Elmer Bernstein. The final river and houseboat stretch is staged with practical stunt work and sustained tension. It works as both a remake and a reinvention, turning a revenge thriller into something more intense and psychological. Strong craft and committed performances keep it gripping and unsettling. And just like that, we close the case on a decade where horror didn't need monsters in the dark. It found them in interrogation rooms, spare bedrooms, and the quiet spaces between trust and suspicion. The 90s proved that fear could be smart, methodical, and painfully human. What titles hit you the hardest? And if you've got a favorite from this era that we didn't cover, drop it in the comments. We're always looking for titles we may have missed. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more breakdowns spanning every corner of the VHS era and beyond. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.